Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
He's gruff, he's lovable, he's always high maintenance. He's Danny Clinkscale, and he's with us here in the program.
Look at me.
How are you, Danny?
I'm doing just fine. Beautiful day out today, and just living the dream, Soren. Living the dream of life, smooth sailing. It's like my life is like just one bit of yacht rock.
Really?
You know? No.
Is there a
So it sucks?
is there really a CD out there called Yacht Rock?
It's actually a channel on Sirius satellite radio,
really?
and it is a subgenre. Yeah, sort of like.
So give me an example of Yacht Rock. What's a
Christopher
song?
Cross. That
Oh,
probably
God.
would give you a.
Never mind. I'll run for the
But
hills.
it can be. It does sometimes include.
Sailing
Sometimes includes things
takes me away.
a little bit better. If you maybe America.
I can dig some America.
So you're kind of a D-bag.
It
is what
kind
you're
of-
saying.
Some comic
No,
once described Christopher Cross as sounding like he was in a passing car when he sings.
That's funny.
I
I
knew who it was. And I was like, that's brilliant.
probably
like
yacht.
he's
Probably a
driving
little
by
to
in a
the
car
to the good side of yacht rock is kind of what I wrote a blog a while back, and it was called "Bullet Train to Velveeta."
Which I loved.
And it was about the fine line between singer-songwriter rock and roll being
James
really
Taylor.
good or really crummy. And if you
Kenny
just get
Loggins.
And
one,
then wait a minute, hang on. Can I ask real quick how Velveeta got on this? Is that the really good?
because
I'm a fan.
It's because it's cheesy. But
Well,
if
Velveeta
you
is that.
so if you just get one little thing wrong. One of the examples of this was America, because they have some fine songs and they have some really awful songs.
Muskrat Love.
Like Muskrat Love, for instance. Thank God.
Sister Golden
they
Hairs.
write that. Yeah,
Top
but
shelf.
they have- so anyway, if you get
You
one.
two nerds can take this conversation out to the parking lot, and I can progress the show forward if you'd like.
And if
but
you
this
get one-
is going nowhere
Here's
fast.
here's the title. The title is, if you get one little thing wrong.
Much more intrigued by the idea of talking about Velveeta cheese than I am the band.
That's where we're
carrying
getting
out there.
here. If you get one little thing wrong, you're on the bullet train to Velveeta with your song. That's what the genesis of the title is. So there you go.
Cheese.
So, and again, where do we stand on Velveeta?
I like Velveeta, all right,
Okay, good.
but it just means it's cheesy.
That's
Your
fine.
song
Just wanna-
becomes cheesy.
Just want to make sure.
Now,
that-
Velveeta is not even really cheese, but
I don't care what it is. It
Yes.
tastes good.
and it's
I
also
like
can
it
be
melted.
used in a variety
I like
of ways.
it not melted. I like it on a cracker. I like it by itself.
You sound
It's
like Dr.
good stuff.
Seuss right
That's
now.
right. Velveeta inspires me.
I would eat cheese.
I would not
train.
sneeze.
I would eat cheese off my knees.
But I wouldn't eat green cheese.
No. But the
I will
Velveeta I'm
eat-
good
I
with.
will
Yes.
eat cheese in the breeze.
There you go. Yeah. So
And be
poets
pleased.
we're not.
And
We've
be
not proven
pleased.
No, we're not.
that. All right, Danny, let's talk a little Sunflowers Showdown.
Sure.
Fellers got together, and it did not go well
For one of them.
for your alma mater.
No. And
So are you now ready to call for the termination of Les Miles?
no.
No?
I'm
Okay,
not.
good. I'm glad.
I'm
glad.
not ready to call for
So
the
sanity
termination.
still prevails in Lawrence.
But first of all, it does show the
Is he one bad quarter away from you calling for his job?
No.
You're a negative guy by nature.
not really.
Okay.
I'm a pragmatist, a realist. I view the facts and make judgments. That is not negative.
Honesty does tend to upset a lot of people in this country these
That was
days.
certainly does.
Danny's rap hip hop band was negative by nature.
Well, you've often heard my nickname for myself, the Happy Cynic.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that they've made real strides this year. But
So what happened?
On one afternoon where
Les Miles pissed off a football team with some comments, and it blew up in his face?
Yeah, and it also revealed that at their best, because I'm not saying that Kansas played their best, but they were out there giving it their. That's one thing I was thinking during the middle of the second quarter. K-State is just kicking ass and taking names, and Kansas has got some fight. I mean, they're trying. Their defensive guys are, getting up in the grill of the K-State guys, and they've got some emotion, and it just wasn't good enough. So there's still a large differentiation in either I don't think the talent level is that wildly different, maybe still, but K-State had a lot of veterans in the trenches. That was where the game was won. And
I think the depth, as much as K-State, when K-State got, what did they drop to, 2-2 at one point or something? Or is it 3-2? And we started, and I thought it was fair reporting, and people were like, well, listen, they have had 30 guys transfer out in the last 18 months. The Bill Snyder recruiting wasn't that good the last couple of years. I'm like, yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing. The talent's not that good. I think that was maybe premature.
I agree, and
there is some talent, but I think their depth is significantly better than Kansas's. They may have lost 30 transfers, but it just does speak to how
3-2.
3-2 they were. Yeah. It does speak to how thin Kansas is. I mean, it just like when the next wave came, there was nothing from Kansas.
When we did the podcast with Stan the other day, he pointed out that in the first two series that they had the ball, and that means that they, I think they drove both times for a score. So we're talking about maybe 15 to 17 plays. They played 8 offensive linemen, 7 wide receivers, 4 running backs in just those plays. I mean, they were siphoning guys in and out, and so they had fresh guys who were fired up. And how, in a rivalry game, the fact that the other coach said who's K-State could get you even that much more fired up. Hey, it's football, it's bulletin board stuff. I mean, we can't.
Let's hear Scott France.
We don't necessarily understand it, but it's a big part of sports.
I understand it. I'll give you my theory. Or I don't know that I understand it. I'll give you my theory. It's being quite presumptuous if I'm saying I understand it. I have a theory on it. Scott France, the tackle for K-State, said his team was motivated by the words of Miles and others last week.
Yeah, we were very focused. I mean, they gave us a lot of bulletin board material. KU, they were talking a lot of stuff this week, and that motivated us. It really did. And I'm glad we came out here and executed.
Did Miles to go have any impact on that bulletin board material?
Yes. Yep.
Was this the first time you could really remember trash talk from KU leading up to a game?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of teams in the Big 12 have respect for each other. And this week was not the case.
This is one of those things. This is why coaches don't like the cameras in behind closed doors, because you use a motivational tactic on your team that you're not intending for someone else to see. But I assume he has full veto power.
I would think so.
So to me, this was almost in your face, because we're not afraid of you. And I think it was a big tactical mistake, because he got his nose bloodied in this game. And whether it did or didn't, like you said, rivalries, did they play at a higher level? Without that, would this have been a field goal game either way? I mean, I don't think so, but it definitely frames the game. It will forever be the game that Les Miles said K-State who, and K-State pummeled them. It underscores and burns into the memory of every KU and K-State fan out there what this game was. That is in the description and will be until those of us that saw the game are no longer, 20 years. It's got a 20-year shelf life. If both these teams suck next year and for the next 10 years, it'll fade. But if either one of these teams is ever anything, that gives you the reason to remember it. It puts it in a time frame in your mind. You can remember I remember what year it was for that game, because I watched that game on vacation in Disney World.
Right.
So that was, my kid was 8, and that was it. Those little timestamps. This timestamps it. This was Miles to go, Les Miles' first year, Chris Kleiman's first year. It just completely underscored the game and burned it into your memories, and it's not a good one for Kansas.
No, if somebody was writing a book about the history of the Kansas State series, and if they did not name the chapter that is about the 2019 game, who is K-State,
right,
they're missing an opportunity.
Or dumb.
Right. So, yeah. Now, do I think that a team should be plenty fired up to play their in-state rival and make sure that in the first year of their new coach they establish turf? Yeah, but sports and motivation is a weird thing. I mean, you hear guys in the NBA Finals saying, well, yeah, they were yapping after that last game, and we were all fired up for Game 3 here. I'm like, woo! It's the NBA Finals.
Do it behind closed
but
doors
anyway,
and not on TV.
But anyway, it was a tactical error because I think it was a tactic. I think it was him saying, they may have dominated this series, but that's going to end. Okay, you guys are every bit as good as those guys, and who is K-State? So I think it was calculated. I mean, Les Miles is, at least motivationally, I think a very smart guy, and it just backfired. His team did. Like I said, I think his team was plenty fired up. It's just that K-State at their best was that much better, and also the one area that Kansas is probably least prepared to really stand their ground in is defending the run right now. And when K-State was at their very best running the football, even though they were down their first two running backs, their tactics, they have a rather sophisticated running game. Not that many teams run the ball as much as K-State do. And when they do, it's more like simple read option or I formation stuff. And KU, they had no answers. I mean, they had no answers. You can't let the other team set the tone with that kind of running. And then when they actually had a chance to make a play, Skylar Thompson made some improvisational plays that were just great.
Carter Stanley needs a clean pocket. He does not throw well on the run. He's not the most accurate guy.
Right.
He kind of wills his way to success and victories.
And he throws a good deep ball.
Yes. Man, he throws a good deep ball. So, that took a little bit of shine off him.
Oh, sure.
Because he just really had no answer for K-State. And I do think that, where I see for K-State, this was a total trap game, right? Coming up next is
Texas.
So coming off OU, looking ahead to Texas and playing a team that you've owned, there was every reason to believe K-State could come flat in this game. It's part of the reason why I picked KU in the points. I'm like, this is the trough game. This is the bottom out, from a high to a low to a high. This is where they could really come flat. And that is one way where I'll say that I think the bulletin board material could have focused them. It's not that made them a better team as much as where it could have been, let's get this scrimmage with Kansas over with so we can get back to playing the other big boys. It put an importance on the game.
The only thing that helped a little bit for K-State beside the bulletin board, which I think was significant, the players all said it, so, I mean, it's a story, is that the last 2 years, K-State hasn't run roughshod over Kansas for whatever reason. They won 30-20 2 years ago, and last year they had to rally for a 4-point win. And so a lot of the guys on the team are probably had their little wake-up call last year, in addition to the wake-up call that was provided by Les Miles. So many guys on the team were like, we can't let that happen last year. We almost lost to these guys, and that's embarrassing. We can't do that. So there are a variety of things at play, but generally it was just – have you ever seen a 38-10 game that the score wasn't even – that game wasn't even as close as the score, and it was 38-10? I mean, that was a 57-3 game. Really, the way it was played.
It was 30-3 till the very end.
Yeah.
Right, but even 38-3.
Kansas
had 74 yards in the first half. They had about 150 yards of offense with 10 minutes left in the game, and their only score came when K-State's backups were in. So, yeah, I mean, it sets a tone, too, and it'll put a little more pressure on each succeeding Sunflower Showdown going forward because Chris Kleiman set the bar in the first one. And so now next year, I'm sure Les Miles will be reminded about who was K-State. In fact, if I was at the press conference before the game, I'd probably want to try it out. So, Les, who is K-State? See if he would bite on that.
That's funny.
How good do you think the K-State Wildcats are?
I still am not going to say that they're just going to roll through the last 4 games. I saw enough of not good I saw 2 games that they won where they scored. They had less than 275 yards of offense. So, yes, they were great against Oklahoma, but I think you can make a case that Oklahoma probably absolutely didn't take them seriously at all. This always sounds weird when I say it, but I think it's true. I think the worst thing that can ever happen to a whopping favorite in a game is to get a 10-0 lead. I mean, you walk in there, you think you're going to win. You're a 20, whatever it was, 4-point favorite, and you just barrel down the field twice, and the other team has a 3 and out. And you're like, oh, this is going to be easy work today. And I think you naturally have a little letdown. Now, K-State was so good in that game, I'm not just going to say it was one little letdown because Oklahoma had plenty of time to stop the torrent, and they couldn't do it. So the very best of K-State has looked like a team that could be playing in the Big 12 championship game. But we're only a couple games removed from them not being very good at all. So I guess the Texas game is going to tell me a lot. Texas isn't playing great football right now. I still think it's in K-State to go to Austin and get rolled.
Will you tell me one thing first? Does Texas have another loss left on their schedule?
Well, maybe this one if K-State is
They're
playing.
home for K-State, at Iowa State, at Baylor, home for Texas Tech. Do they have another loss?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure my Texas under bet's going to come in because it's a push right now. So just want to make sure you agree.
No, I think
that's going to happen.
They got plenty of
that.
They got to. There's potentially 3 losses there.
Oh, I agree. They're not getting out without another loss. So
yeah, I think you're safe. I think you can budget those funds.
You mentioned K-State playing in the championship game, and that would be a tremendous accomplishment. I think it's going to be a little bit tough. To do it, they're going to have to beat maybe run the table?
Maybe.
They've got the head-to-head win against Oklahoma. Where does Oklahoma lose again?
I don't think they do. I think they got their wake-up call, and they got their wake-up call and then a bye, and I think they'll realize.
At Baylor's.
Iowa State at home, at Baylor. Those are their 2 games. TCU and then at Oklahoma State. They could lose again.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying they can't.
But if they lose once, K-State has to run the table for the head-to-head to come into play.
Right. But I think that Baylor's probably I think the whole thing's still up in the air. I don't think Baylor's maybe only going to lose one. They play Texas and Oklahoma back-to-back. They both are at home. Baylor's interesting. They've pulled a couple of games out of the fire, but would I be surprised if they lost 3 of their last 4? No, I wouldn't.
Baylor has won against Iowa State, K-State, and West Virginia by a total of 8 points.
Right. And the one against Iowa State was just a horrendous. Or what are their losses again? There was one that the Big 12 admitted they made.
Baylor hasn't lost.
Yeah, they made.
Who are you asking me?
One of the wins is the Big 12 admitted they made an officiating error at the end of the game. I think it was Iowa State.
The Iowa State game, because Iowa State came back to take the lead,
right?
21-20,
and Baylor fumbled in overtime. That's what it was, and it was ruled a no snap. The guy snapped the ball in the shotgun as if the quarterback was under center, and they said he moved the ball, so it was no snap, and that would have basically given the win to Iowa State in overtime because it was a chip shot field goal, and they made a mistake, and the officials or the Big 12 officials admitted that it was a mistake. So that game was kind of gifted to Baylor, but they've also been tough and seen other teams rally and fend them off. But no, they're not a proven commodity. But they are a great story.
All right, so now what do you say happens here, Kleiman and Miles? You've now had half a season head-to-head. Where are the two programs going?
I think Kansas is going to get better, but I have higher hopes that I said at the outset I thought Chris Kleiman had a better chance of staying a step ahead of Kansas because I think there's a culture in place there. I think there's a fan base with expectations. I think there's funding whenever you want it. I think there's still a generation of young football players in this area, including Kansas City and a little bit into Missouri, who see Kansas State as a cool place to go play football.
As a football school versus a basketball school.
Right. And, people love football at Kansas State. You're the man in a Southeast Conference kind of way on campus at a Kansas State. In Kansas State, that culture is there. So I think it's an easier job, but I think Les Miles will have enough recruiting sway, especially early on, to get better athletes in there. And, but the Big 12 doesn't have a bad program right now. That's the problem. That's the problem with building. So that's another difficulty in trying to build your program.
Yeah, but they've only got one great one.
They do. Agreed.
Only one great one right now.
And
that's
most
Oklahoma.
leagues have a Vanderbilt, or they have a...
Texas appears to be looming, but they're taking a step back, which I don't really fault them. I bet the under 9 wins for a reason. I thought this is... Last year they kind of overachieved. This is the year they rest on their laurels, and, they underachieve. And so next year we'll find out really what Tom Herman is. I think Iowa State, we're starting to see Matt Campbell bump his head against the ceiling on Iowa State. And Baylor, I'm not sure. Let's see how they finish. But, boy, Matt Rule, we're starting to understand why NFL teams were interviewing Matt Rule for NFL jobs. He's really good. And so let's see what they are. But right now, you're right. There is no bad team. There's no layup. There's no Vanderbilt. Sorry, Missouri. There's no Vandy out there.
Right.
But likewise, you can rocket up to at least 3.
Oh, sure.
Or at worst case 4 without a lot of work.
Look at K-State. Their over-under was 5.5 this year, and we're talking about them playing potentially in the Big 12 championship game.
And I think it's also of note that TCU, now that there's no bottom feeders, TCU is having their issues. That Tom Herman's recruiting Texas and TCU's having their issues. Because I talked about this when TCU came over the league and everybody wanted, TCU's just as good as A&M. They're better than A&M. I'm like, they're playing in the Mountain West. Come play with the big boys every week. And now he kind of owned the state. Baylor was rock bottom. And,
right. And Texas was down.
Texas was down. So in league, he was really owning the state. And that's, so I think there's some interesting dynamics. There always are. In a conference that are going on right now. How about this? How about the loss to K-State may have kept Les Miles at Kansas?
What do you think he was going to do?
Who is Florida State going to hire?
Florida reports out there of Bob Stoops today.
Yeah, well, that's been out there for 2 days. That seems to be word is that Bob Stoops is like a part-time coach in the XFL. He's got just enough to like it. If Bob Stoops is going to take it, then okay, then we're done. Bob Stoops goes to Florida State. If Urban Meyer is going to take it, okay, Urban Meyer is going to go. I thought it was interesting when we had Ryan Green on from Jacksonville. He said, listen, people got to remember, it's not just the $17 million buyout that they've got on Willie Taggart. They were still paying like something else. He's like, no, they're paying a lot of money that's going out there.
So paying the next coach is going to be more difficult.
Yeah, and so my point is this. And you got to try to sell tickets. They're having problems selling tickets.
Right.
Bob Stoops has been mentioned. Mark Stoops has been mentioned. And FAU, the old USC, Tennessee, Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's been mentioned.
That won't sell tickets.
Well, but if Les Miles beats K-State, and he's at 4-5 and has wins now, an almost win against Texas. And then they went out and they beat, who did he beat? Texas Tech. Boy, all of a sudden you're kind of going, He slapped BC, who pummeled Syracuse last week.
Right.
So that BC win looks even better right now. I mean, how far down the food chain is Les Miles from Florida State calling?
I still think he would be in year one with a losing record fairly far down the food chain.
Bob Huggins didn't go to the NCAA tournament after 1 year, and he was hired by West Virginia.
True, but he's a native son, so I think that has something to do with it. Just to reference Bob Stoops for a second, we had him on College Game Day a couple of weeks ago, and this was so I don't think he's just scratching an itch in the XFL. I think he really. I said my first question to him was how much or how far down the road are you from, in the withdrawal process from college coaching? And he said, not far. He says, I'm miserable. He goes, the first year out of coaching, I was very miserable. The second year out of coaching, I was slightly less miserable. So he really wants to coach football. So I don't think that's, I think he's had his period of taking a breath and whatever. And I think he's, the XFL, I think, is kind of seen as, he can just sort of half-ass it, and which he can if he wants. But I get the sense that he really is interested in being a full-time football coach again, that he's not done. So Whether Florida State is appealing enough to him, I don't know.
Did you find out why he walked away from OU?
Well, he just continually said it's time. His sons were playing high school sports. He wanted to be able to go to the games.
What, did they graduate in 2 years?
I think one of them's now playing at Oklahoma. And I think the other one's a senior in high school. So I think that was part of it. I don't know. It's hard to see his exact motivation. He said, I'd accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish at Oklahoma.
Well, what was the last check? Because the national championship came in year 2. What was the last check he was waiting on?
I don't know.
On the list, when I say check mark, not money check, right. But check mark.
Maybe when he made, I think he made did he make the playoff his last year?
That sounds right.
Maybe that was it, or maybe he said, I made the playoff. That's great. I saw what happened when we made the playoff. Although one of the games they played well. It's hard to say because he clearly. It was funny the way he said it. It's just like he misses coaching so bad, and so you do kind of have an odd thought as to what the motivation was.
Well, the AD at FSU today tried to kind of pump the brakes on the Bob Stoops rumors. He said to the Tallahassee Democrat, rumors we are close to an agreement with Bob Stoops are untrue. We are on schedule to have someone in this position by the end of the month. Chances of something happening this week are virtually zero. He said Stoops has not been offered a contract. So whether that is considered pumping
has
the
not
brakes,
contract really does sound like he's our guy, though.
Yeah.
Well, it also says he has we have things in place by getting it done by the end of the month. What's that mean?
But somebody who's not coaching right now.
He said that he's on the
points
list
towards Bob Stoops.
Right.
He's on the list and certainly somebody we would consider. But he's trying to slow people down. And nothing's in place yet.
It's a program with history. Yes, you have to butt heads with Clemson, but after a couple
and Florida,
but after
and Miami in your biggest market.
True, but I mean the AC. It's not playing in the SEC. Now it's not playing in the Big 12 where he played before either. But a couple of the programs that had started to rise up a little bit.
It's a good time to get into the ACC.
Right.
There's Clemson in.
That's what I was getting at. And Miami.
Virginia may be in the championship game, for God's sake.
Miami's down a little bit. Tech's definitely down. I mean, some of the program, Syracuse looked like they were sort of maybe going to take some steps.
We are what we are.
And then no.
We're Oklahoma State-ish.
Oh, I think you're being a little nice to yourself there.
Where's Oklahoma State coming in this year?
Well, they won again last week, so I think they've been a consistently good program.
Well, I think Dino Babers rose up to kind of what his ceiling was last year, and now he's kind of taking a step back, but he'll take another step forward. What do you Oklahoma State had one time that they challenged for a playoff. Do you think Oklahoma State will ever be on the doorstep of a playoff? I think there's an appreciation well beyond. I think Mike Gundy better quit with the I might leave crap.
But he
gets a lot of mileage off winning 10 games in a league that's had a couple of layups for him every year.
But he did win the 10 games. He's got in a setting where he's got to play little brother to a gigantic program. He's been a consistently strong winner, not just like winning 7 games. So I think he's done a great job.
We'll take a break, come back because Jed's freaking out. Then we'll talk more. It's the program.
The program with Soren Petro. Weekdays from 2 to 6 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is Where Integrity Matters. Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made Are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
All right, the Jazz into the hour answer. Before I get to that, let's congratulate Kelly and Nate Bucati. It's now been made public. Benny and Ophi have a little baby brother, Andrew Joseph Bucati, born today. So
congratulations to the Bucatis.
Yep.
Three's Company.
Absolutely. Champions Classic tonight. First time that the top 4 teams in the AP poll played each other on the same day since what year? It has been a little while.
Same time the top, what?
The top 4 teams in the AP poll played each other. It means 2 matchups.
Yeah, involving
fitting the first 1 through 4.
Since when?
Since what year?
Since what year, Curtis asks.
My level of interest in this answer is low.
Really?
It has been a while.
Yeah.
I don't know that my interest level is low, but my ability to solve the riddle is low. Yes.
I'm going to be interested in hearing it, but I have, like, maybe it's sort of half and half of what you're saying. I'm not sitting here going, oh, darn, I'm not going to be able to answer this. I feel bad.
What do you got?
December 5th, 1992, number 1, Michigan, number 4, Duke at Cameron. Number 2, Indiana. Number 3, Kansas.
I actually do.
Where was that
remember
one?
That was at Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
2 Indiana, 3 Kansas, you said?
Yeah.
Where was it at?
In Lawrence. And Michigan, Duke at Duke.
If my memory serves, Jacques Vaughn hit a game-winning 3.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Yeah, well, we're all impressed. We're all impressed with your ability to recall.
Thank you. I'll show it off on Thursday, 3P.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
No, I'm not going to do that.
All the questions you answer on Chumps, Jed, we just get out of the way.
I ask them back, too, all the time.
Yes, I
Every
know.
question. So prepared.
Yeah, get off the tracks, because here comes a freight train. Its name is Jed.
Freight train of knowledge.
Great Cajun food from Jazz. That's what we were playing for. Go see him out at the Legends, 39th and State Line, and in Independence. It is Jazz, a Louisiana kitchen. Great Cajun food, live music, great happy hour as well. Go see him at Jazz, a Louisiana kitchen. The best place for Cajun food in Kansas City is right there. We're talking to Danny Klinkscale. It's a little Danny Unleashed. Danny is brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. With a for both commercial and residential, and with a project manager on every site. Easton Roofing, 4 straight years they've been voted best of houses, and they're an Angie's List Super Service Award winner. You can check out their incredible reviews online at Google. So check it out. They're happy to do repairs, customer service focused. No payment collected at Easton Roofing until you're 100% satisfied. Credit cards and PayPal are accepted. Call Joe and the guys at 913-257-5426. Or go online to eastonroofing.com. You can have ice up on the roof before too long and everything. If you've got some problems, you haven't taken care of it, do it right now. Call Joe and the guys, 913-257-5426. Lovely Sam will also be happy. She'll be happy to take care of you. Online at eastonroofing.com. Easton Roofing, integrity matters. And, of course, find sponsor at DannyKlinkscale.com.
That is correct. And talk about scarring you at a young age. Joe Spiker took his young son, Easton, for whom the company is named, to his first Kansas football game.
That didn't go well.
The other day. No, it did not go well. He texted me beforehand saying, are you going to the game today? I said, no, but are you? Yes, just made the decision, taking Easton. I said, great weather, great day, have a blast.
Should be a great game.
Have a blast.
Yeah.
I'm sure Easton, midway through the second quarter, turned
to
Dad.
In the third quarter.
Yeah. Dad, what happened? I thought they were better.
Jason Anderson reminds me, I knew there was something else. Florida State still owes Oregon for 3 of the buyouts. They owe Oregon $3 million for his buyout there. They agreed to pay Oregon's remaining $1.3 million for the South Florida buyout.
Nice.
So they're paying a lot of money for guys to not coach there. That's what it's coming down to. So that
you know that they want somebody to go when they raised about $20 million in a week to buy him out.
Right?
You go to the boosters. Hey boys, we need $20 million. Oh sure. Where's my checkbook?
Yeah, this isn't going to happen. Also, to clarify what I was talking about with Oklahoma State, I do think Oklahoma State, along with TCU, are major benefactors of if OU or Texas is down, and I think Baylor being down. I think with the quickness with which Baylor has rebounded, it's clear that program is more than just one coach, and they're doing a pretty good job. And when I say Syracuse aspiring, I think that's where we can be. Is Oklahoma State.
I would disagree with that, but Oklahoma State.
We're not Oklahoma State. We have not had that run of success.
Double-digit games, 6 out of, 9 years.
6 out of 8?
6 out of 8. Then they had to step back last year. We'll see what the rest of this season entails. They're 6-3 now.
It smells like 8-4 to me.
Yeah, which is...
And off the top of my head, I don't remember their last 3, but one of them's OU.
Right.
So
we'll see if they end up. You might be right. They might start sliding into an acceptable mode of 7 or 8 wins instead of the 9 or 10 that they were doing on a regular basis, and finishing second in the league 3 times, 4 times.
And that stretch, K-State was on the downslope as well, and Chris Kleiman may have them on the. I mean, listen, not everybody can win at the top. It comes
That's
down.
right.
It's as simple as that.
Hey, the only time Kansas has really won in recent times is when Ron Prince was at K-State.
Switching gears a little bit, Mike Matheny.
Really complicated situation. I did.
You think so?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of
things. As opposed to a 555 manager that won 4 different playoff series, 3 division titles, and he was available?
I think it seems there's a lot of good things there, but when there's just huzzahing that he's gone at a place, and there's seemingly real intrinsic problems that were there. Now, there's 2 sides to every story, but his, multiple reports.
None of which were like the performance on the field, though.
No, but the performance on the field did. He was. There's the first 4 years. He's the first manager in the history of baseball to make the playoffs his first 4 years.
Yeah, and let me say, listen, he was fired at 47 and 46. That's not great, but the Nationals were 20 under or something?
19 and 31.
12 under. 19 and 31. I mean, that Cardinal team got going. Did they get going because he was gone? Maybe, and maybe it was just time. I'm fine. I will not argue the Cardinals breaking ties with the man. None. Like they lived it. They knew this is not right, and they have won since he's gone.
Right.
So I have no problem with that they walked on. It's the acting like somehow this job is above him. He is beneath the Royals' job. That somehow what he did in St. Louis cannot possibly be tolerated here.
Oh, I agree.
Look in the mirror, people.
I also think that there's no real case to be made for some of the columns that I read while I was, preparing for the blog I wrote on Saturday, that were like, this is an abomination. This is a disaster. I mean, no. So I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Now, does he have to, he was just almost, averse to analytics. Like he was just a pure gut instinct type of manager. And he's probably got to change some things and learn some things. The clubhouse culture seemed to be one of believing that younger players are soft these days. And he apparently allowed hazing. And a lot of younger players didn't play as well as maybe were expected, or started out well and then started to fade and not get as much playing time, and now are seemingally better players like Colton Wong. So and you're talking about a culture where you're going to have
fantasy baseball. You've been pushing that Colton Wong turd up the hill for a long time. Right. I mean, there's plenty of reason to send Colton Wong down.
Right.
Batting $195 is not Mike Matheny. Right. Not like a guy.
He wasn't the only one. I'm just saying that there seemed to be. He seemed to favor veterans and think that the good old days of baseball. And he was a tough guy. I mean, he was driven out of the game by concussions and would repeatedly just get bowled over at home plate and stay in games. And so I think he probably was, a bit of an old school manager, no question. but he had success. I mean, they were good. They won four. They made the playoffs 4 years in a row. Went to a World Series, lost it in 6 games, and he never had a losing record. Now there's some people who say, well, it was just a culture that was set by Tony La Russa, and once that started to fade, they started to step ladder down a little bit, and the record does kind of show that a little bit. But like you say, .556 winning percentage.
It's not Trey Hillman.
No, and it's his second job, and he's had the ability to take a year off. But I think there are a lot of complex things here because, philosophically, his worldview is so similar to Dayton Moore that I think I used the phrase.
Well, I think that's what scares people.
Yes.
People don't like the God Squad. There's a lot of people that don't like the God Squad. They don't like that Dayton Moore interweaves his religious and political beliefs into his conversation. Right. And so Dayton Moore could have picked anybody, and this is Dayton Moore's guy. It pisses me off.
Yeah.
I think that's
even with
the single biggest driving factor, which I don't poo-poo it away, because if this team is still 3 years away, like Ned Yost pretty much said on his way out the door,
he did say
I don't know that Dayton Moore can make it 3 more years. The shine of the trophy wears off quickly. And if they don't show significant progress, it to me shows an undercurrent of, I still haven't gotten over the fact that I didn't like Dayton Moore till he went and screwed things up by winning a World Series and making me shut up. Right. I liked bashing his trades and his lack of analytics and all this, and so that screwed it all up. But I've been waiting to pounce, and now I got my opportunity. And the fact that Dayton Moore's on board with this guy, I don't like him, and I think that's kind of a scary thing for where your fan base is. That put 1.3 million is down. Their attendance is down 50% from its high water mark.
Right.
That's got to be listened to by John Sherman. And I think he'll be paying attention to this.
I think he will, too. And the Royals side of it would be that
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's reality.
Right. And what are you in? The entertainment business.
Yes.
Period. So the Royals version of it is they had Mike Matheny here for a year to vet, as it were. And I think my line was that their views are so similar that maybe that year, it'd be easy to paint that year as more affirmation than examination. That they really weren't judging him. They were just judging, he was just saying, well, he's been around here for a year now, so we've got to see the insides and outsides of Mike Matheny, whereas maybe it was just he was my guy all along. And that may be fine. Him being that guy all along may be just great. So that's why I think it's complicated. There's really good things here, and also it also just brings in the whole aspect of how important a baseball manager is.
That's true. We'll take a break. More with Danny next.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker of Easton Roofing. And Joe, oftentimes people will wait to replace their roof until there is a weather event. What should they know about that?
Well, Danny, the important thing to remember is if you're going to turn in a claim to your insurance company, you want to make sure that you actually have damage on your home. If you turn in a claim to your insurance company and they send an insurance adjuster out, it's going to be a claim whether they give you $1 or $10,000. So it's important to make sure that you actually have damage on your home before you turn that claim in. And all you have to do is give us a call. We'll come out, take a look, and make sure there's real damage, and we'll tell you if there's not. Maybe it's just a small repair and it's not worth a claim. So it's always smart to get somebody you trust to make sure there's damage before you turn in a claim.
Quality advice and guidance from Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
All right, wrapping things up this hour with Danny Klingscale, brought to you by Easton Roofing. Find them online at eastonroofing.com, 913-257-5426. Easton Roofing, integrity matters. Danny, who wins tonight, KU or Duke?
I'll say Duke will win, but both teams have a lot of questions for early in the season. But I think when you have super high-level recruits, you can more just roll the ball out there and run pick and roll. And Kansas has a lot of players adjusting to different roles. So, making a pick is kind of, it's a one-point line. I'm just. You ask me to pick the game, I'll pick Duke because I think that
because you're a turncoat.
Their talent is a
boo, Danny.
Raw talent in an early game is more important.
Danny has turned his back on his alma mater.
Yeah, and this game's so vital.
Turned his back on his alma mater.
KU fans are going to start doubting you now, Danny.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.